Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our spiritual home, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tarpon Springs. We're glad to have you with us today. My name is Barbara Rosen, and I serve on our Board of Trustees, and I'm serving as your worship associate today. We are a church of many welcomes, and we offer a warm welcome to all of you. This is a liberal community for all ages, promoting spiritual growth, social justice, and the arts. As such, ours is an active church, and everyone is invited to participate in any of our activities. To learn more about events, our church calendar is on our website, uutarpon.org, or we'd be happy to talk with you during the coffee hour. Our children are with us during the beginning of a service, and then after the story, they go with Jami. If you'd like more information about our programming, please contact Reverend Kristina or see Jami after the service. For those present with us in the building, we have connection cards in the pews near the hymnals or on the chairs. And we also have small cards there for joys and sorrows if you prefer to write one. We're delighted to have Reverend Kristina Spaude with us leading the service today. And music is provided by our music director, Bonnie Whitehurst, and the choir. Thank you.
Our gathering song is number 1012 in this teal book. 1012. When I am present. And if you'd like to stand, if you are so moved to stand, you may as you sing.
singing is awful.
When we introduce ourselves, it is helpful for those with vision loss and others to say some things about ourselves. So I am the Reverend Kristina Spaude. I use she, her pronouns and am a white woman. I have chin-length curly brown hair, parted on
Can't
one
hear
side,
her.
with blue eyes. And here at the church, we want to acknowledge that we are on the lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole peoples. Our opening words this morning come from my friend and colleague, Linda Susan Ulrich. This is Open Up the Doors. Open up the doors. Push on looming wooden arches embroidered with ironwork. Brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved. Slough off the musty smell of unused joy and stored up sorrow. Knock rust off the hinges if you have to, and let your breath precede you inside.
Reverend Kristina,
I am. Open the doors more. Make room for a shaft of sunlight to cross the threshold. Give the dust mites something to dance about. Peek through a single slice of possibility and name even the half-hidden truths you see. Open the doors wider still. Pour yourself through the gap. Strut or sneak or sidle as suits you best. Cleanse whatever scrapes catch your skin and bind up the wounds that keep you from entering whole. Open the doors as far as they will go. Draw on the strength of the stones beneath you. Ground yourself in a firm sense of who you are. Stand as a beacon welcoming the next seeker and shine far beyond the lintel and still. Open all that you are. Heighten and deepen your connections to the world around you. Broaden your definition of neighbor. Grow into the largest target for grace that you can muster, and pray to become a gateway for even greater love and compassion. Open up the doors, my friends, lest we keep the stranger out and condemn ourselves to prisons of our own making.
We light our chalice with words from Katie Gelfand. We call forth the life of our faith by igniting our chalice. This spark of new beginnings invites us into a sacred space to reflect where we have been and where we are going. Even knowing that this particular flame will intentionally end with our ritual extinguishing, we fear not its end. For we know with brave hearts that from every ending of our lives, we are sent forth to make a new beginning.
Hymn number 123 in the Gray Book. Spirit of Life.
Is it Christmas?
Ran off.
For those who don't know me, I'm Barbara Mellon. I am a white woman, 41, well, almost 41 years old now. Oh my gosh, 41 years old. I just hit my birthday. I'm about 5'5". I have long brown hair that's right now pulled up in a twist behind my head, and I have blue eyes. I'm here today just to talk to you a little bit about why I'm here, why I give. For those who don't know, February 12th, 2017, I walked into the Walden Center where we were having church while our current church was under repair for sinkhole. Right before church started, I was greeted by Barbara Kostreva, and then I sat in the back with my son Alex, then 22 months old. I was offered childcare at the moment, but I didn't accept, until Donna stood up during Joys and Concerns, which was then at the beginning of the service, and she said what a joy it was to hear children in church. Alex went off with her. I sat through the service, of which I recall absolutely nothing, but towards the end, a member slipped me a note. That note said to just call, text, or email her if I needed anything, even just to talk. She clearly could tell something was wrong. What she didn't know is that just over a week before that, I'd left my abusive husband and I was completely lost. I just was a hot mess, to say the least. I headed to church that Sunday to the Unitarian Universalist Church because at that time my mother, she'd started attending Unitarian Universalist after we all graduated. I have 3 younger sisters, and her descriptions made it sound like a community, a place that I could find the community I missed from my youth in the Methodist Church without the religion that I didn't miss. I also had a faint idea that there was social justice, there were progressive values, things I wanted my son to learn, as I'd considered previously attending, but my ex was against it, so this was my first step towards all of those different things. I kept coming back because this was a group I could go to every Sunday without trying to coordinate plans, schedules, all the things I just couldn't do at that time. I have a great group of friends, but in 2017, sometimes that coordination was just more than I could handle. As many of you know, this church has been supporting me over the years, being there when I needed someone so I wasn't alone when exchanging Alex with my ex at the fire station in Palm Harbor. Many people have shown up there, and just having somebody there was huge. They've supported Haven House, the other domestic violence survivors, and they've been supporting and celebrating both our concerns and our joys. I formally joined the church in 2020 when my divorce was finalized. It's a little bit of a celebration for myself. That final step, getting free, was joining this church. After I joined, I started to become more involved because this church embodies the values and the care for others that I myself value. I wanted Alex to learn the same, and I didn't want to be the only one having to teach him. I needed a little bit of help. As I brought up things that are important to me, such as social justice, a community for children, involvement in the local community, we've made steps in all of those directions, sometimes things we're already doing, sometimes adding on to that. This community doesn't care if I'm here every Sunday or if I just show up whenever I can make it. They're accommodating to those who can be here in person and those who can't be in person. And there's always someone who stood up and helped when someone was in need. I love that the community welcomes the children. In particular, Alex, he looks forward to attending most Sundays, though to be fair, a couple weeks ago when he had the chance to go roller skating with my sister who used to do roller derby, he chose roller skating over church. Absolutely did that. I love that this community of mainly older members, to be fair, with more limited technology experience than the typical millennial, fully embrace technology and all it means so they could keep everyone connected throughout the last couple of years. This community is a progressive spot in the middle of so much that distresses me right now in the state of Florida. Having a community of all ages that is welcoming shows me that there is hope despite all the distress out there in the world. This hope and the community ground me. They keep me here in the present as well as looking forward to the future. I like that the community evolves as the needs of our members and our friends evolve. I like that our children's programming is growing as our children grow. They're not little kids any little two toddlers anymore. I like that we have a social justice committee that doesn't just talk, but participates in actual social justice and encourages those to participate as they are able. I give, and I increase my giving as I'm able every year because this community is needed. It's needed to welcome those who need them. needed to create a community of artists, of thinkers, friends, neighbors. And while I may not have attended most or all of these events, I love that we have Tai Chi in the park, an artist group. We've had writers groups, we have book clubs, we've got different ways to learn about each other, such as journal stories. The covenant groups, and there's other ways to help those who want to develop their spiritual selves as they wish is so important to me. Again, even if I'm not there, I love that they are there. Just knowing those groups are there makes a huge difference. One small thing that has made a huge difference is that when it was noticed, I sit there in the back of the service and I knit. That little thing that I knit was not immediately embraced. It wasn't thought of as a distraction, but recognized for what it was. It's a way for me to keep my hands busy and help me focus during services. It was also encouraged that anybody else who needs something like that, please do. It's not a distraction. I recognize that there are many people with many different interests and thoughts in this community. I encourage all to recognize this church for what it is. It's a community that welcomes everyone, celebrates each human being just for being human. I encourage all to participate and give as they are able.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. We have also a volunteer appreciation today. For someone that many of you may not yet know. I say this because she is often quiet and reflective in groups, but it's also because she doesn't make it to church on Sundays most of the time because she is generally hosting our folks who are attending on Zoom. She chairs the Caring Committee, plays an active role in leading and supporting our mindfulness meditation group on Monday afternoons and the Buddhist meditation group that meets on Wednesday evenings. She also gives of herself in other ways when she can, including with a kindness and grace that she may feel lacks, but is clear to the rest of us. Today we are saying thank you to Robbie for all the ways that she supports and loves this congregation. And Robbie, I will be in touch with you. Our story for today is called Magnolia Flower. The story is originally by Zora Neale Hurston and has been adapted for this beautiful book by Ibram Kendi, who was the theme speaker at this last year's annual General Assembly. It has been illustrated by Love is Wise. The brook laughed and sang. It hurled its water into sparkling dance figures up into the moonlight. The brook sang louder, louder, danced faster, faster, with a teasing splash at the three leaning trees on its banks. The trees awoke and began to murmur noisily of seasons and centuries, love and birth, and the transplanting of life. Nature knows nothing of death. At last, the brook danced into the bosom of the mighty river, upsetting the plants who blushed from the moon's kisses. The mighty river turned in its bed and spoke, "Why, O young water, do you disturb my sleep?" "Because, O mighty one," replied the brook, "the flowers bloom, the trees and wind say beautiful things to me. The moon shines upon me with a full face, and there are people in love beneath the orange trees on my banks." "No matter," scolded the river. "I have seen millions of people in love, child." "Tell me about some of them," begged the brook. "Oh, well," the river muttered, I suppose brooks must be humored. Long ago, humans who were pale of skin held a dark race of humans in bondage. The dark ones cried out in sorrow and woe, not here in my country, farther north. Rivers carried their tears to the sea, and the tide would bring some of them to me. But some of the darker ones did not weep. They fled in the night to freedom. One of them came here. Bentley was large and strong. The beasts were afraid of him. The Florida forest made way for him. He gathered stones and metals and built a big house. Soon a whole village of runaways hid out over here. They were called Maroons. They lived on an island of freedom in a vast sea of slavery. Bentley married Swift Deer, a Cherokee woman who had fled her own trail of tears. Swift Deer and Bentley had a daughter, Magnolia Flower they called her, for she came at the time of the flower's opening. When she was 4 years old, the tide brought rumors of war over slavery. After the war ended, slavery ended. Black people walked free on the lands of Swift Deer's ancestors. Wind and water again grew sweet. Magnolia Flower started to fully bloom. One day, as the sun gave me a good night kiss and the stars began their party, I bore a young man named John, about Magnolia's age. John did not have much money, but he had many words. Swift Deer liked him. Bentley did not. He wanted a man of metals, not words, for Magnolia. Before 2 weeks had passed, John had taught Magnolia to read strange marvels with her dark eyes, and she had taught John to sing with his. Oh, how words love. Love knows nothing of death. Soon Bentley had had enough of their love. He locked John in a room in the house. All stayed away. All feared Bentley. Not Magnolia. As her father slept, she went and freed John. 1 minute more, and they flew down the path to the 3 leaning trees, into the boat, away northward. This all happened more than 40 years ago as humans reckon time, River said. Magnolia Flower has passed from the hearts of the people who knew her. Bentley and Swift Deer died. Freedom for Black and Native people died too. The tide brought all their tears to me, all their joy, all their love. Their love is mighty and ever flowing like me. The brook listened, thrilled to its very bottom at times. The river spoke calmly on, flowing under the moon as it moved to the sea. An old couple picked their way down to the water's edge. It's been 47 years, John, Magnolia said sweetly. Do you think we can find the place? Why, yes, Magnolia, my flower, unless they have cut down our trees. But if they are standing, we'll know 'em. There they are, Magnolia pointed. They hugged the trunks of the 3 leaning trees, then hugged each other and sat down shyly upon the heaped up roots. John, listen, did you ever hear a river make such a sound? Magnolia whispered. Why, it seems almost as if they were talking. Maybe it's welcoming us back, John said. Maybe, Magnolia beamed. I always felt that the river knew all about you and me. We will sing Jami to her programming if she would like to go, with hymn number 413 in the gray hymnal.
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the light of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Okay, good enough.
Now is the time in the service where we take our offering for the work and welfare of this church. Ours is a free faith which must sustain itself financially. Please go to our website, uutarpon.org, and click on the Donate button, or you may mail your offering to the church at 57 Reed Street, Tarpon Springs, Florida, 34689. For those of you who wish to use in person, for those of you in person, the offering plates will be passed. Thank you.
I know.
Before our reading, we will hold a brief moment of silence. Let you settle into yourselves and your chair. Take a few deep breaths deep into your belly if that's comfortable for you. Our reading today is titled Called to Heal by Melissa Jeter. This is the November 2nd, 2022 entry for Braver Wiser, a Unitarian Universalist weekly email offering for reflection that you can sign up for on Worship Web if you'd like. Melissa writes, quote from Resma Menachem, "In my grandfather's hands, racialized trauma and the pathway to mending our hearts and bodies. Healing doesn't just occur in the present. When you heal a soul wound, you heal the people who come before you. The leaves are falling, but I live in what seed companies call Zone 6, and I can let the plants produce more vegetables if I hold out until the first week in November. I recall when I sowed, nurtured, and cultivated these seeds in a small raised bed to this present unwieldy bunch of plants. I had to hold on as seedlings broke through. Not all the seeds survived. It took a while to get here. Here is the time and space where everything feels heavy. The fall is when I feel the anxiety and the heaviness in my chest. Fall is the time that one of my primary caretakers died, my paternal grandmother. I was 4 years old. Here is the time I recall going to school for the first time. Here is the time when I went to a new school at 13 years old and experienced pain and racial conflicts and learned to deflect them from all the bullies. Here is when my father died. I tried to concentrate on my breathing just to make sure that I am breathing. Here is when I heard love say, "From now on, you will begin to remember." Somehow, love was planted in me. Now, as I gaze at the ripening vegetables, I feel presence and wonder. I recall my father's stories of his mother's mother and how I look and act like her. Love is reaching through the generations with expectations that I live through challenging times. Hold on, I tell myself. Heal these wounds. This year is no different than past seasons of dread, change, anxiety, culture shock. I am not exceptional. No one is exceptional. Change is constant. I'm going to hold on in the transition. I choose to change. In the stillness, I reach back to reconnect to my first caretaker's love, seeds sown in me a long time ago. I want the harvest of that love. I want everyone to have the presence and care of love. It should just be permaculture for us all. Her prayer. In the stillness of fall, let us harvest healing for ourselves. Let us hold on as we change. May we keep growing and changing and emerging. Let there be presence and care of love for us all. So be it.
Leave it here.
This is an attempt at a love letter to this congregation from a systems thinker. Max Planck was a German physicist known by many today as the founder of quantum theory. It was Planck's work that changed our understanding of physics. For example, traditional or classic models of atoms, which are composed of a nucleus, which is composed of protons and neutrons, is surrounded by electrons. In classic models, the electrons had a fixed orbit, like the way the moon orbits the Earth, and the Earth and planets and whatever Pluto is now orbit the sun. What Planck found is that these subatomic particles make less sense and are less predictable than this. It is his work that formed the idea that matter can act as both particle and wave. Actually, I read that isn't even true, but I don't have the knowledge or time to get into that. We might need to consult with Greg. But when electrons travel around a nucleus, Planck found that they acted more like waves and did not follow a set path. Instead, they form regions of negative charge that move around the nucleus. Electrons can move around from one of these regions to another. Planck found, too, that the closer he looked at an object, the object changed at a molecular level. That is, the atoms and their particles changed, as if the act of being seen changed them and their behavior. In one of those quotes with multiple attributions of source, one of whom is Planck and another of whom is Wayne Dyer, he found that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Congregations and other groupings of people are similar to what Planck found, but instead of looking more closely at things and seeing something different, it is helpful to take what is often called a balcony view, or even a 10 or a 30,000 foot view. Sometimes we can't do that when it's enough to consider a situation from another perspective. We might try to do something like think about the trees or the brook or the river in our story. How would they tell the story of what is happening now? I'll come back to this. Let's consider another example. When I was doing my chaplaincy residency at the VA, one unit was spent working with a cohort of vets with PTSD who were doing intensive inpatient treatment for substance use disorders. An unusual thing about being a chaplain at a VA is that chaplains are more fully integrated into veterans' care teams than they are in civilian hospitals. Congress mandates spiritual care as an integral component of veteran care and allocates the funding for it to help ensure the opportunity for holistic care. So this inpatient program for vets with PTSD and substance use disorders was a 10-week intensive program with 10 vets per cohort. One of the exercises they did was a timeline. They each included important life events, anniversaries, things that happened in the service, relapses, and so on. The cohort I was with stretched from April into June. One veteran asked to share his timeline with me as his chaplain, sort of as a trial run. The clinical staff had agreed to this, that he could share his timeline, but that he could not share the details and the particulars, as those needed to be saved for the group and the clinicians. We spent a while together with him sharing his story and the things that had happened to him. I remember noticing that he relapsed multiple times in November, January, and May. So I asked him if something had happened to him during those months, not for details, but asking if there was a connection between those months and a significant, stressful, harmful, or hurtful event in his past. People, as well as the systems we create, hold memories in our bodies and our minds, or in the case of systems in the way that we relate or not with one another, whether we are conscious of them or not. It turned out that 2 of those months were when he had been assaulted, and the third held a similarly significant event. He hadn't recognized the pattern, nor, he later told me, had the clinicians overseeing his program. But as a chaplain, as a spiritual care provider, that would be the kind of thing that we might notice. We look at the whole and not just the moments. I wish I could say that that had changed everything for him, but it did not. Because I continued my training, I was there when he relapsed again the following January. I'm not going to tell you that story because I think it's actually too much to share from the pulpit, and no one consented to it. But I will say that the consequences of that relapse impact everything in his life. Congregations and other human systems, families included, are similar. We create patterns of behavior that repeat continuously. Even this congregation, with its amount of regular membership turnover, one consequence of the number of retired members of the congregation, snowbirds or not, who often spend some years here but eventually move back to family or move on to the world of the ancestors. Throw in ministerial turnover, inadequately addressed conflict in the congregation, and other factors, and here we are. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is, as 12-steppers know, the definition of insanity. I also carry on my journey the wisdom from Buddhist nun and author Pema Chodron, who says that nothing ever goes away until it teaches us what we need to know. The first task is recognizing the pattern. The next is being willing to do something about it until we make the change and continue forward on that path. Portia Nelson sums this up beautifully in her autobiography in 5 chapters, which is as follows. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am hopeless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. Returning to the idea of taking another perspective of what's happening, one of the classes I took in seminary was taught by a theater professor. She'd be so proud of me now. We wrestled in the class with the paradox of being in seminary and taking a class with a theater professor. Ministry is not theater, but of course we can learn so much from those who do theater. One exercise we did in the class was taking a narrative and telling it from the viewpoint of someone not in it. The story we were offered was the Good Samaritan. My colleagues chose to tell the story from the viewpoint of a vulture, waiting for the opportunity for dinner, which was rudely disrupted. From the viewpoint of the innkeeper's wife, I can't remember if she was resistant to the situation or supportive anymore, it was 8 years ago. And there were others. Like the story today, told not by the people who are in the story, but who would be the traditional main characters, but instead by the brook and the trees and the river, whose knowledge is perhaps deeper and whose memory is longer, and obviously whose perspective is different. In this way, today's story is also not about Thanksgiving, but is very much about the things we are most thankful for. What stories might the trees and even this building tell about this congregation? Often when we are in a situation or think we know the story so well we can recite it ourselves, our viewpoint has been fixed. Telling a story from another perspective can change our own perspective. So it doesn't seem like I am just talking around something. I'll name that there has been a lot of anxiety in parts of this congregation, and this has, even in spots, escalated to conflict. I want to lift up again what Greg said last week during the service, that this congregation has so much potential and has had its moments of vibrance in the past. And as he shared last week, this congregation has experienced conflict before, with 2 major ruptures during his time with this congregation. That is, in less than 11 years, this congregation tore itself apart and attempted to rebuild, applying some learning to what had happened. I don't know how long this cycle has been repeating, but it's been a lot longer than the last 13 years, probably happening for at least a couple of generations. As both Greg and Judy lifted up last week, this congregation is resilient. There is no question about this congregation's will to survive. I hope its will to grow in depth and maturity is as strong. I think a lot about the search team that brought me here in 2020. Barbara Rosen, Greg Rosasco, Diana Reif, and Barbara Mellon, and Mark Hopkins, who joined the interview team. I think of their love for this congregation, their belief that this congregation had done enough work and was on the cusp of something more and better. So full of hope and commitment. Their enthusiasm and hopes for this congregation informed my own outlook. They continue to be part of the love that orients me in serving this congregation. I hoped you were all committed to growth and change at that same level as they were. Maybe you are. I know that change is hard, and we have to want it for it to work. We have to own our own part or role in the problem and be willing to do the work to get the outcomes to match up to what we want. Do we want to keep walking down the street and falling in the hole? Or do we want something better for ourselves? What doors might we open to let the light spill in and help us explore what's inside? What if we were to hold on and to heal these wounds? What seeds of love might we plant? Conflicts in congregations, as in other systems, belong to the congregation. Systems experience the challenging paradox that at once no one is solely responsible for it, but also that everyone is responsible for it. This is true regardless of the players, especially when there are patterns of behavior that repeat. There has been, simply put, been a failure to communicate when congregations begin to experience conflict. One remedy for this, for trying to heal a system, is open, clear, and direct communication. Not silos or echo chambers, but conversations, wondering questions, willingness to consider options and opportunities with the people who are responsible and or can impact change, and committing to having a role in making the change happen. If I have done harm, I am truly sorry and ask for forgiveness. In my enthusiasm for your potential, and as I have worked hard to help you achieve the vision you told me you had for yourselves, I may have overreached. Some say yes, some say no, some don't have an opinion. My work as the minister serving this congregation is to help you be the best you that you can be, and the best we that we can be. I've said before, if we were just doing what I wanted, we'd be in a much different place and doing much different things. But your vision statement says, we are widely known as a beacon of liberal faith. We connect bravely, grow spiritually, embody justice, nurture the arts, and love unconditionally. I want to help you get there. My work is to serve and support you, to guide and mirror to you, to celebrate what is good and better, to challenge what is not, to empower you and be a resource for you, to remind you of your dreams and longings, to help you confront and engage your fears, to point out opportunities for growth, and especially to care for you. We may not always agree, but it is not my intention or wish ever to cause you harm, and I do not believe that you want that for each other either. After all, in wars there may be victors, but everyone loses. Why would we want such a thing in a community we love? What if we were to make it so that everyone wins? This cuff says, I am not here to keep you from the places you feel you need to go, she said. When you're ready, I'm here to remind you of the way home. Maybe we can try changing the way we look at things and seeing what changes. Together, I hope we can learn to practice what is best for our shared faith, our ability to live in covenant, and to become the people and congregation you've said you want to be, which you are welcome to change at any time, so long as it is done by you together. May we together learn to stop falling in the hole and find a way to love one another. When I was at the VA, the other residents and fellows and I used to shout affirmations at each other as we would leave the office to do our work. I believe in you. Make good choices. Your presence is a gift. We're here for you. Smash the patriarchy. You got to keep it real in a VA, right? You are the ones you've been waiting for. We're all here together. I believe in you. May you find that you do too.
Our closing hymn is 131 in this great book. 131. Love will guide us. Right, I'll just play it through.
close my services always with these words from Jean Harrison Newyar, who has written in The Gift of Faith. In the lore of ancient China, there is a story of a philosopher who was asked, "Where is the road called hope?" He replied, "It does not exist, but as people move upon it, it comes into being." I invite you to continue moving forward on this path, guided by love. Forward with me.
We hope you found meaning in today's service. We close with these words from Maggie Lovins. We extinguish this flame, but not its meaning and mission in our hearts. Our time together has come to an end. Go in peace, be of service to one another, and may you move through the world in love for all of your days. And Jean will bring